Hey guys, Bolt here, and welcome to The Lost Pages. Again, this is a series. I will be trying to show this book off every time that I make something like this. But basically, these are my ideas, reimaginings, rewritings of popular series. There has been 3 episodes prior to this one over the OG Dragon Ball Saga and Namek Saga. I throw in specials and all that during sagas, or I throw them in prior to certain storylines. Anyways, let's get into a quick summary. I've been pretty bad about these. They go about 20-30 minutes. So let's get into it. So this imagining is basically, imagine if Netflix were to pick up a series, and it would be basically a saga or episode. In the beginning would be 8, 10, or 12 episodes, and then by Z, or like later OG, it'd be about 16 episodes. And then if I need more episodes, I'll extend it to 24. Very close to The Walking Dead. Episode 8 and 9 would be considered generally as part 1 and 2 of major fights. Episode 8 would be the rising action / climax, while episode 9 is the falling action / the aftermath. This is also a PG-13 rewriting where blood and language will be acceptable, but because things like Roshi and all that would not be acceptable nowadays, or especially in our country if it's Americanized. I mean, it'd probably be okay on the East, but the West is not acceptable of some of the stuff like Roshi does. Anyways, my rewriting / reimagining has mostly been would be giving characters better development, bonds, and better understanding of their background, morals, and characterization. When it comes to bonds, things like Goku and Bulma's sibling bond has been big things I highlight. When it comes to characterization or development, Goku being an idiot from Super doesn't exist in my reimagining. Because he's around Bulma and Kami, he has to at least have some kind of education, and by the time Z happens, he's about a high schooler level education. And then because he's around people that are used to the normal world, he's able to develop social skills. So by the time he goes to marry Chi-Chi, he understands what it means. He doesn't have to be explained it. Because he is around a girl to explain what marriage was. Going over some of the big parts of the other series is that I have permanently killed Lunch / Launch, thanks to DKP. And I perma-killed Chatsu after Namek. Because the problem with Dragon Ball is that Dragon Balls give us no anxiety of losing a character. So when Launch / Lunch died from Mercenary Talon in the Aurelie special and then in DKP, she'd be 2 years. A new rule I added for the Dragon Balls is if it's 2 years, after 2 years of time, they cannot be brought back. So because this is only the Earth Dragon Balls, Namek would be too long after 2 years, so Launch can't be brought back, and Chatsu would be literally after 2 years. And also he gave up his position for Tien to go back and become a teacher like he's always wanted, saying he didn't want to hold Tien back anymore because Tien cared more about making sure Chatsu was okay rather than developing his own personal skills and dreams. Dr. Wheelo was more of a foreshadowing for bigger threats like Dr. Gero. Garlic Jr. was the expansion of the universe. Raditz is the son of Borgos, who's on Team Bardock, the guy with like a cut in the middle of his head, slightly bald. Turles is the older brother Goku in my reimagining, rewriting. I have a bad, my voice is like, I'm pretty sick right now, so. Turles rebels against Frieza and goes along with space pirates. That's why we see him in Tree of Might. Saiyan's tails during youth can regrow several times in a year, but adults, it takes months to years before they can regrow alongside their tail, and from GT you can pull it out when you think it's fully developed. Normally surgeons can kind of figure out when it's possible, but if you're in the middle of a battle and you want to take that possibility to get your tail back, it's a lottery. Bardock is a middle class general for the low class. Tora is in line to be one. Borgos is a subspecies, same as Raditz, that can partially control their grade A power. Fasha is a record breaker. Sugesh is the food researcher. Gine is a researcher who created the fake moon and several other things the Saiyans know now, including Zenkai Boost. But because it was used to kill other living beings, she gave up on it and became a housewife for Bardock. And then we use a big problem. I've seen a lot of the community knock down Gohan a lot because I want the fighter of Gohan. I don't care about the teacher, the researcher. That's his entire arc, is that, yes, while he is the son of one of the greatest martial artists, he also has been trained to care about a career, and he's wanted to use his studies to become what he wants to, and a researcher slash like scholar is what he wants to be. So using future Gohan in the history of Trunks to be a head slash assistant researcher to Bulma to kind of help her stabilize the rebellion. And I also used that to make his smarts come through. Like, hey, future Gohan, even in his darkening times, is able to follow his dreams. Not in the greatest lengths he wants to, and it's not a job he wants to keep doing because he wants to save people, but it's something that he wanted to do. Where Slug, when Slug came by, I gave him the ability to kill Slug instead of Goku. That way we show that Gohan isn't just a wait until Cell happens. Gohan can actually be a forerunner beforehand. Another thing that I mentioned during the history of Trunks is that Hercule and Videl gave their lives in the future timeline to save future Gohan after he lost his arms after a failed attempt at killing them. And then Dragon Ball Super, in their manga, they explained what happened to the future timeline, which is basically the Pilaf gang interrupted a wish that would have saved them from the androids. And they interrupted it to become youthful again. And that's how all the other Z Fighters died, was trying to give them time to use the Dragon Balls. And Piccolo died, making them useless. Moving on, we were able to finally break 10 minutes. Now that I've actually wrote down this stuff, I'm going to come back and make more notes for other stuff. Because we got one more video. We got Boo Saga next week. And I wanted to make sure this happened. I actually might do this. Well, I may not do this in the beginning. I might say as finishing words, like a publisher's note. Be like, hey, this is why I did what I did. Because Boo Saga is the end of Z, and we'll be moving on to GT and Super and kind of running through that. Okay, so moving on to the Android / Cell Saga, episode 1 is basically the 3-year training. We also got the meeting and defeating of 19 and 20. We see Super Saiyan Vegeta in episode 2. We see the hunting of Android 20. We meet Android 17 and 18. Before, in the history of Trunks, they were obscured by like smoke and stuff. You can see their hands coming through to kill people, but they were not shown. So episode 2 is the official look at them. I wanted to kind of make this a little bit, it wasn't as long as Frieza, but I wanted them to be hey, remember that big threat from last time? Here it is. Episode 3 would be Piccolo merging with Kami, and then him and the Z Fighters fighting Cell. As a side story, Bulma, Trunks, and Gohan find the Jiro's lab, destroy it, and find the buttons. And then they come across the time machine where Cell has killed another future Gohan, future Trunks, and they find his egg / shell on top of his skin as a larvae. Episode 4 is the fight between Piccolo and 17. Then moving on to 16 and Cell very quickly before Cell absorbing 17. And then the end of episode 4 would be Semi-Perfect Cell. Becoming, we don't get to see a full look until episode 5. Episode 5 is just literally 16 and 18 hiding as people like Tien and Piccolo fight him off until episode 6 where Super Vegeta comes in to fight. Episode 7 is Super Trunks fighting both Vegeta and Cell. And then episode 8 is them losing to Semi-Perfect Cell to make him perfect by absorbing 18. And Vegeta and Trunks just get swept under in that episode. So episode 8 is halfway through, and we just obliterated all the heroes that did all this training. Episode 9 and 10 is mostly the resting phase before the Cell games. Episode 11 is the Cell games, while episode 12 is Goku versus Cell. So we get to see Hercule in episode 11. Episode 13 is Gohan and Cell in Super Saiyan. And then he busts out the Cell Juniors at the end of that episode. Moving on to 14, he's torturing the other Z Fighters until Gohan snaps into Super Saiyan 2, and he quickly demolishes the Cell Juniors. And episode 15 is Super Saiyan 2 versus Cell, and Goku's sacrifice. And at the end is Super Cell coming back and killing Trunks. And then 16 is the standoff, Trunks going back to his future timeline, killing his Cell and Trunks, and then him promising to go back because President Cell hasn't been found. They found the normal lab, but not the secret lab. This gives him reason to come back for the 2 specials, Android number 13. Basically, this is very similar, but I made it to where, at the end of this saga, Vegeta, after the sacrifice of Goku, basically loses his pride. Someone so great of a warrior lost his life because of such a dumb reason. He loses his will to fight. So in Super Android 13 movie / the special here, he doesn't come into the fight because he knows Gohan and Trunks have it. They do the normal fight, but it's only Gohan and Trunks. And they get the dub by doing a double my Cinco on Super Android 13. Kind of give them future Gohan and future Trunks kind of vibe. And afterwards, they find Dr. Jiro's secret lab. And if you guys went back to the OG video, I said that they found a list from Androids 2 to 12. And number 1 was seen and that it existed, but it was basically a marked out document. I made it so that Cell is Android number 1, and that ever since Dragon Ball, he has been being developed by Dr. Jiro to become the greatest threat to Goku. Sorry, ants. I need to get this area sprayed. It's been horrendous. And then Bojack special. Vegeta, after feeling that Trunks is losing, he gets back into the mode to fight and has, hey, I can train the people that needs to be trained in the ways of a Saiyan warrior. So he's able to get back into his mojo. But basically, Trunks returning back to the future, and basically, while Gohan is in a mentality of, I need to fight for my father because when he passed away, he gave Earth protection to me. Um, but Trunks is like, hey, yes, be the protector that your father wants you to be and that everyone knows you can be, but you can be a researcher as well. Balance the two worlds. Because even though my future Gohan was struggling with it because of what our situation was, it is possible. And that sets up him to go into Orange High and all that in Buu Saga. Oh, and then only way to beat Bojack, I'd say here, just because of I don't think that it would be alright to not do it, is just show that Vegeta actually comes in and that Gohan will be low on energy, and to give Vegeta his freaking dub, you let him Final Flash Bojack, and then giving Vegeta his dub. Let me go back. So, yeah, so I know this is not that big of a change versus the original, but I wanted it to basically say, hey, Cell Saga, let's streamline it. Because Namek Saga was just as bad. Why would you keep showing our heroes slowly tiring out over like 10 episodes while you can just say, hey, well, they can hold their own for a little bit, and if it weren't for like Kaioken draining Goku so much, he could have fought Final Form Frieza, but because it drains him so much, Frieza in his final form, that's his normal form, just smacks him down. This is what I wanted Cell Saga to be, is just these people on a separate scale. And yes, Super Vegeta and Super Trunks come in to knock him around a bit, but once he achieves perfect form, it's useless. So I wanted to streamline a lot of the stuff that happens in Dragon Ball. Make it to where, yes, we see epic fights, but we don't have a bunch of screaming. Yes, we have a quick boom, but that's it. I think Super Saiyan 3 will be the only one that's an elongated transformation or giant screaming scene. Just because that's how it is. Long hair, long screen. But another thing I wanted to do was, hey, Gohan, you are the hero now. So let me give you Cell's victory, and then let me give you Super 13's victory. And then because Cell came to fight the androids, I gave him a little bit of a side victory. And then I made it to where Trunks would come back for a reason for the movies instead of just hanging around. He has to make sure that there's no more androids, and then, make sure he learns everything he can before going back. And then making sure everyone's in their right mind space. Anyways, that is it for this one. I will see you guys in the next video. Friday will be... So I promised that it would be a Finance of Freddy's lore video. That is not the case. So it turns out I am on page 5. Actually, no, I'm even past that. Hold on, let me count them. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is 6 pages to the theory, and I'm only on Finance of Freddy's 2. And what the lore I'm gonna do is, the theory is I'm gonna find every actual known lore bit and make a major theory at the end of that video. So what I'm gonna do is Friday, we're going to do a theory. It'll be a surprise theory, but it is something that I thought of as I was making this. Next week, we'll have the actual lore, Finance Freddy's 1 through 6, and then we'll mention the movie. But after that, so 2 weeks from now, we'll be going into the modern games, some of the book info, just because a lot of that stuff is malleable and it isn't very, unlike the games where it shows you and there's a reason why it's in this universe. While the other ones are from the multiverse of Fazbear's, the games are what we worry about, and it's kind of like what we know. A lot of this stuff is retellings. So 2 weeks from now, we'll kind of go into why does this game exist? Why does it need to exist? Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.